On June 22, 1941, the largest land invasion in history thundered across the Soviet frontier. More than 3.8 million Axis soldiers, supported by 3,350 tanks, launched Operation Barbarossa. These included Panzer III AUSF-J, Panzer IV AUSF-F, and 7,200 Luftwaffe aircraft providing crucial air support. It was a blitzkrieg designed to annihilate the Soviet Union within weeks. A swift, decisive blow. This offensive aimed to secure Hitler's vision of Lebensraum, or living space, in the East. Yet, this monumental gamble, initially devastating the Red Army and seizing vast territories, proved fatal. It ultimately culminated in total catastrophe for the Third Reich, sealing Germany's ultimate defeat. Within 6 months, the Wehrmacht, seemingly invincible, was stalled at the gates of Moscow. They battled not just the Soviets, but also the unforgiving, brutal Russian winter, an unexpected enemy. How did a campaign of such immense initial success, crippling Soviet defense and pushing hundreds of miles deep, ultimately lead to Germany's strategic undoing and a prolonged, brutal war of attrition that sealed its fate? To understand this monumental failure, we must delve into the lethal cocktail of ideological fervor, also the strategic hubris, and the brutal realities of a war without quarter that defined Barbarossa. Despite the Molotov-Ribbentrop non-aggression pact of August 1939, Hitler viewed the Soviet Union as his ultimate ideological enemy and the key to securing German supremacy across Europe. His vision of Lebensraum, living space, in the East was rooted in racial theories. These theories posited Slavic inferiority and called for the complete annihilation of Bolshevism. As an ideology, the plan was to destroy the Soviet state, enslave its people, and exploit its rich resources, particularly oil from the Caucasus region and grain from the fertile lands of Ukraine. The Wehrmacht had achieved stunning victories in Western Europe, honing its blitzkrieg tactics. These involved rapid, coordinated assaults by tanks and devastating air power, overwhelming opponents swiftly. Hitler was convinced of the Red Army's weakness due to Stalin's purges of its officer corps. He believed a quick decapitation strike was possible, ensuring a rapid Soviet collapse. Intelligence reports suggesting significant Soviet military vulnerability further fueled this dangerous German overconfidence regarding the Red Army. Stalin, despite numerous warnings from his own intelligence and Western powers, remained in denial. He believed Hitler would honor the non-aggression pact, a catastrophic misjudgment with severe consequences. This catastrophic misjudgment left the Red Army unprepared, its forces poorly deployed and vulnerable. Its leadership was often caught off guard by the sheer scale and ferocity of the German assault. The German invasion was spearheaded by 3 massive army groups, each with a primary objective. Army Group North, led by von Lieb, targeted Leningrad, Russia's historic second city. Army Group Center, under von Bock, aimed directly at the Soviet capital, Moscow. And Army Group South, under von Rundstedt, drove towards Ukraine and the crucial Caucasus oil fields. Facing them was a Red Army in disarray, initially led by figures like Marshal Semyon Timoshenko. Soon, Joseph Stalin himself oversaw operations, taking direct control after an initial period of shock. Key Soviet commanders who rose to prominence included Marshal Georgy Zhukov. Pivotal in Moscow's defense, the Soviet strategy, initially reactive and disastrously defensive, gradually shifted over time. It evolved towards strategic retreat, scorched earth tactics, partisan warfare, and industry relocation eastward. The opening phase of Barbarossa was a catastrophic success. In weeks, millions of Soviet soldiers were encircled and captured in colossal battles such as Minsk and Smolensk, suffering immense losses. Army Group Center's panzer groups, led by generals like Heinz Guderian and Hermann Hoth, advanced hundreds of miles. The destruction of Soviet aircraft on the ground was immense, and the Luftwaffe dominated the skies. However, as the campaign progressed, fundamental strategic disagreements began to emerge within the German high command. Hitler, prioritizing economic targets and Red Army destruction, diverted significant panzer formations south. Guderian's Panzer Group II, meant for Moscow, was sent towards Kiev in August, a critical error. This delayed the crucial offensive against the Soviet capital, Operation Typhoon, until October. By then, the Russian autumn had arrived, bringing with it the notorious Rasputitsa. The season of mud roads became impassable quagmires, severely bogging down German tanks, trucks, and vital supply convoys. The Wehrmacht's logistical network, already strained by vast distances and different rail gauges, began to collapse. Crucially, the harsh Russian winter descended prematurely, with temperatures plummeting to -30 Celsius and below. German soldiers, equipped for a quick summer campaign, lacked proper winter clothing and supplies. Their lubricants froze, tank engines struggled to start in the cold, and automatic weapons jammed frequently. Soviet forces, however, were prepared for winter warfare and reinforced by well-trained Siberian divisions. Some were equipped with the formidable T-30 for medium tank and the powerful KV-1 heavy tank. In December 1941, as Germans stood near the Kremlin, Marshal Zhukov launched a powerful Soviet counteroffensive. Fresh Soviet armies, supported by new equipment, pushed the overextended and frostbitten Wehrmacht back from Moscow. This was the first major strategic defeat for Hitler's army in WWII, shattering German invincibility. Operation Barbarossa transformed World War II, initiating the brutal Eastern Front, a conflict of unprecedented scale. This front was defined by immense barbarity and loss, changing the war's entire trajectory. It permanently shifted Germany's war from a swift, decisive campaign to a prolonged, grinding war. This war of attrition onto fronts drained its resources and manpower, weakening Germany decisively. The ideological underpinning ensured unspeakable atrocities against civilians, prisoners of war, and Jewish populations. This brutal conflict ultimately led to millions of deaths across the vast Eastern Front. The failure to conquer Moscow and destroy the Soviet Union in 1941 was a strategic turning point. It proved that Hitler's vision of a quick victory was a fatal delusion for Germany. Committing Germany to a prolonged war, it ultimately could not win in the long run. Barbarossa stands as a stark lesson in strategic hubris and the catastrophic consequences of underestimating an adversary. Hitler's ideological obsessions and interference in military planning, coupled with fundamental underestimation of Soviet human resources, industrial capacity, and fierce will to resist, proved fatal. The logistical challenges across immense distances, combined with extreme weather, were severely miscalculated. The resilience of the Soviet people and the sheer scale of their sacrifice ultimately thwarted Hitler's ambitions. Operation Barbarossa remains a testament to the devastating human cost of ideological warfare. It was a critical pivot in the trajectory of the Second World War, changing everything.